But I really believe we are stepping off into the next ice age. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to happen in like 2 years, so we're going to have miles of ice over our head. But if we look at the interglacial period as we step off here, there's the last success of what you understand is the Little Ice Age, classic Little Ice Age, 1640. That next step, cooling, is going to be cooler than that. And it doesn't look like, at least with the length that we've been in this warm period, which is 2,000 years on average longer than the last, say, 20 to 22 of these interglacials going back millions of years. This is 2,000 years longer than any of those in the last 20. So just with if you're looking at numerology, or if you're just looking at how mathematics works, being that far past it, maybe it's some sort of technological construct that we're really that far ahead that we can extend interglacials. But I mean, at some point, nature's more powerful. The Birkeland current system powering this spiral arm of the galaxy, including our sun, is much more powerful than that. So when we step down, we are stepping into an extended cooling period, and it will successively step off cooler and cooler and cooler. Like the days of warmth that we understand in this interglacial, I do believe have come and are coming to an end. This would be that event, catastrophe, whatever event, whatever you like to call it, that all hands on deck. Something has drastically changed where this world is going to continue to shrink food production, and whoever controls whatever mechanization and industrialization left and transportation is going to be in charge of that, of a shrinking world, a shrinking economy, and a shrinking population. You know, because if you look through the last ice age periods, what we have currently shrinks tremendously down to less than 1 billion people. That's just on an ice age cycle, and they would all be sandwiched near the equator. And our world population currently, without all the mechanization and fertilizer and all these things that bring us abundant food, would definitely shrink to under 500 million. If it were a full-blown glaciation, we would be squeezed along the equatorial bands. So you're talking about a world that's going to continue to not be able to reliably grow food. They're even tinkering now with aluminum-resistant seeds because whatever causation they think that so much aluminum's deposited on our soils now that they need to genetically modify wheat to be able to withstand enhanced aluminum concentrations in the soils. I mean, we've jumped the shark on a lot of things here. Now they're trying to get resistance, cold resistance, also moisture and cold resistance, wheat strains. Like, that's a dry crop. Why are we trying to suddenly prepare for a wet and colder environment, genetically modifying our existing crops that are already genetically modified? They're trying to tweak them again to survive some sort of extremophile profile. So somebody knows this is changing. And whoever's in charge of this has been captain of the ship here. This thing is going to be, shipped to somewhere colder. And we're going to have to revalue everything. And Ransom, I know you wanted to chat about some of this, so I'll leave it there. But yeah, we're definitely facing some significant global challenges right now. And you can see why everything is changing so dramatically all at the exact same time, because we are now at that point of no return, in my personal opinion. But all the study I've done for that last decade plus, so I really believe we are at this time now. But again, I said that during COVID when it started also because of the lockdowns, but I digress.
I was thinking that one of the things that they may be planning for is a magnetic field collapse, because we know, our poles have been shifting at an exponential rate. And I was reading a paper the other day that talked about kind of at the end of that cycle, when the field collapsed, it would get exponentially faster until it happens. So like, when the poles arrange to where they're going to be before this, and a lot of people get this confused. They think there's a whole planet flipping. It's not that. It's a magnetic pole flip, and it's only like temporary. It goes back. But the paper that I was reading was basically saying that the magnetic field would get faster and faster, collapsing, which would mean on Earth a period of mass die-off and hard times farming, because you need the magnetic field to protect your crops mainly. So that would be a major issue. But I wanted to go back to something that Nyquist said that kind of clicked in my brain because I don't really see these parties, the left and the right, really working against each other so much and more working together on long-term plans. So for decades we've been allowing people to move up into the United States, and in doing so you've changed the demographics and you've changed what it means to be tribal. Like me myself, my wife is from Mexico City. Our children have, they're a mix of two cultures, two peoples, or really more if you break it down. But there there's a problem in Europe that we won't necessarily have here. In Europe, most of the people that move there have a culture clash with the cultures that are there. So there's going to be a lot of pocketed tribalism there. And the fact that one group is populating faster than the other group may change the demographics in the short term. But in the U.S. and North American realm, our cultures have kind of mixed, and the fact that most South American people are Catholic or Christian of some kind, despite the language different, which is shrinking by the day. Like I'm pretty good at understanding Spanish. My wife is bilingual. Our kids are becoming bilingual. My friends are bilingual. So this tribalism will be a little different than people are expecting, and it seems like this whole MAGA, let's deport people. I don't see mathematically how there could ever be mass deportation in the first place. They might be able to get main characters out, like the people that Jeff was talking about, are these multinational gangs that have ties to different intel groups around the world. If you could get those all locked up, and then I expect actually Trump to do something that everybody will appear to be mad about, but not really. And it'll be something similar to what Reagan did, because they know that we need the populace to rebuild a reindustrialization. And that's another point that he was making out. We're in a bad spot as far as industry. We don't make nothing really other than weapons and trash. So we have to get back to that place where we're making vehicles and we're making infrastructure for ourselves. But I expect a mass, allowing of people to stay where they're at. And not only that, a bigger trade than we've ever had before. And let's not forget that, basically some of the trade deals right now and this tariffs are seem to be aimed to rebuild the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, in a new way. But it's literally the same thing. And when you have this militarized zone on the southern border, you kind of see that they're planning for things in the near future, which I would think would be similar to the Middle East. Matter of fact, if you looked over there, we just blew up a giant water filtration plant, which is very similar to what we did to Iraq for 10 years or 8 years, really, under Bill Clinton, right? Bill Clinton was in the news for all kinds of stuff. And people forget that between George Bush and George Bush, we steadily bombed that area because both groups had the same goal, which was to destabilize the entire Middle East and seemingly move those people north. And we saw that. We see this plan. It seemingly people on opposite ends of the political spectrum in the long term work for the same goal. And I think we're going to see an amnesty of a lot of people once they've handpicked basically the people that were more risk to be assets within the mainland United States, which would be MS-13, Tren de Agua. And right now in Mexico, there's a realignment of the cartel structure. So in the end, there's only going to be a few players versus maybe like 10 cartels. There's going to be 2 cartels, and one of them will be assets of the United States. The other one undoubtedly will be assets of foreign parties. And that'll have to come to a fruition as part of a world war. I mean, I see this America's being finally susceptible to being in a combat theater. And let me remind you guys of the Trilateral Commission. You remember it was going to segment the world into these three parts. That's literally what we're seeing right now coming to fruition. And if there is some kind of food emergency worldwide, you're going to see them, shrink up, stop trade. And before they have to do that, they have to control areas exactly like he was talking about. They have to have land grabs. We have to work our way in position, especially in the canals and the trade routes. So you see in the Middle East, kind of a new organization. So I see the main issue being right around the Black Sea in Turkey. Otherwise, Russia won't have a foothold on the Mediterranean. And if we could, close that gap, sort of with our partners over in the Middle East, then we'll control that little the trade route between the Middle East and Europe. And we know that Europe is changing demographics very, very fast, especially with the new additions to the areas. They have more children. So in 20 years, they will outpopulate the native people of each of those countries. And over here, we won't have that same problem, like I said, because when it comes down to it, it's a bilingual Christian-based nation, or at least on the surface. And I don't see it that hard for the United States to come to term to finally utilize allies to the south. We've kind of exploited them in the past. And I see this whole realignment happening because we have to control these major grow zones. And if indeed it's going to get colder, then you can just draw that line down where it's going to be almost uninhabitable for certain people in northern countries in the Western alliance of stuff. So Canada, they're not going to be growing much there.
There are few things you can count on in a major disaster. Having your water supply cut off is one of them. With the Alexa Pure Emergency Water Bank, you'll have months of drinking water in your home. Everyone else will stand in line waiting to get just a few bottles. It's one of the easiest, most affordable ways to store emergency water, and it takes up hardly any space. The Alexa Pure Emergency Water Bank includes one BPA-free liner, comes with a siphon pump for extracting water, fits just about any bathtub, large or small, fills quickly in 30 minutes or less, holds up to 65 gallons of water, and keeps water fresh for up to 16 weeks, holds about 2 months of water for one person. A person can generally survive without water for about 3 days. However, the exact amount of time depends on many factors, including age, activity level, and overall health. Don't gamble with your life and well-being. Being prepared is easier than ever with Civilization Cycle and Alexa Pure.
In the upper top of the 48s, they're going to have constant blizzards, constant flooding. And we've kind of seen this, and it seems like they're kind of preparing people, especially with that last hurricane, to realize that, if you don't start growing, and it kind of goes back to what he was saying in Germany about them growing their own food within their own country. That's like the victory gardens of World War II. We don't do that no more. And Jeff's right. We're in a giant, I'm going to say, blue collar emergency. The people that actually fix stuff. And you alluded to robots kind of filling that niche. The problem with that is they can't get down and fix your toilet. They can't, get in the sink and stop the leak. They can't do those kind of things yet. So really, for Americans, there's kind of a benefit for the young people if they choose trade routes versus going to college and somehow educating themselves. I could see that being a benefit in the short term, but I really think that we're going to have hard times for the next rest of this administration, and no telling what will happen after that. There has to be a realignment and a renegotiation of how everything's moved around, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
Go, Jeffrey. I'm interested in your response on that.
Yeah, no, I think what he's saying is right. I don't think they're going to expel. I think it might be closer to 56 million illegal aliens have come into the country, and they've had children and whatnot.
Wait, did you say 56 million?
56 million. I've worked with some people that have worked with the numbers, and of course, this is the people that have come in since the amnesty that Reagan did back in the 80s. And of course, right. So that we're going back almost 40 years now since Reagan's amnesty. And there's just no way that you're going to be able to send these people home. I mean, they've got children who are born in America. Many of them, and what he's right is it's the criminal groups that you want to expel, and it's the people that are from jails in other countries and certain countries that they're not here to work. They're here to engage in exploiting the local population or the welfare system. But it's just impossible to send that many people back. There's just no way. You don't have the manpower to do it. You don't have the organization to do it. And the other thing is we have an increasing deficit of people who know what they're doing.